We'll see how far we can go, but the good news is I'm here till 2019 and most of you will be here next year as well. So, tingnan natin kung hanggang saan tayo aabot. So, let me first acknowledge all of our guests representing DTI, and the main presenter for today is Yusek Dimagiba. I hope hindi ko kayo nagsasawa sa mga hearings natin. From OCC, of course, is General Counsel Korea and Attorney Padilla. Good morning. Also my friends for another bill, which I'll be sponsoring next week with Senator Angara. So, ito, minamag rin natin to. No? Itong Consumer Act will have a few more PWGs. No? The Court of Food Amendments actually are ripe for discussion already and for the plenary. Alright, we have Mr. Stephen Pua from PAPASA, not the Weather PAPASA, but the Philippine Amalgamated Supermarket Association Inc. Steve, thank you for coming. Ms. Virgie Clavel from DILG. It's over there. Hello, ma'am. To join us here. You're happy. Feel free to join us if you wish. From DOH, Attorney Emilio Polic Jr. Hello, sir. Good morning. From the Ad Standards Council, we have Attorney Reggie Hulalpal. Yes, sir. Did I pronounce it properly? Yes. Good morning. From DSP, Dr. Johnny Noe Ravalo. Good morning. From IPO, Attorney Leonardo Limbo. Good morning. From Pure Gold, Attorney Jocelyn Chu. Yes, good morning. Feel free to join us here if you want. Ms. Rodela Romero from DOE. Good morning. Mr. Rick Samaniego from the Philippine Coalition for Consumer Welfare. Good morning. Magandang umaga po. Ms. Anwar, Attorney Casalas, also from DSP. Attorney Domingo, also from DSP, as well as Mr. Roy Hernandez. Good morning, ho. Mr. Bautista is also from DSP. So, it's so many members from the Bangko Central. I wonder why. Because do we have for the exact is for the also for the Consumer Act. Okay. We'll be tackling actually also the exact change bill today. So maybe you can also give some comments on the exact change bill. Okay, so that's everyone. Magandang umaga po. Again, this is our first hearing. We don't expect this to end in one hearing. We'll probably have a few more hearings. But today we just like to get a general feel for the comments of the different groups and agencies here. We'll start with Yusek Dimagiba's presentation, and then we'll ask each of the groups to give their comments, and of course we'd also like to hear from the private sector. You don't have to go into full detail because we will be calling for a PWG where we're going to request you to put things on paper and discuss further any of the suggestions, comments, or recommendations regarding the bill that we have filed already. After which, we'll consolidate all of the comments and suggestions and probably call for a second hearing down the line. Alright, Attorney Yusek and Attorney Dimagiba, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to all fellow resource persons. Yes, which slide one? We will present to you very briefly the salient features of the proposed amendments to the Consumer Act of the Philippines, which we submitted to the Honorable Chairman about 2-3 months ago. So, but based on the notice of today's meeting, there are other proposed amendments to the Consumer Act, long form or short form. So anyway, all of those will be discussed and handled when we meet as technical working group. Okay. Second slide. The proposed amendments to the Consumer Act will reiterate the source of the rights of the consumer and the responsibilities. Maybe for the information, everybody, we have the United Nations guidelines for consumer protection. It has been there for almost over 30 years, and at the moment it is undergoing revisions at the General Assembly level, purposely also to put with the recent development in consumer protection, particularly digital commerce, as also our proposed amendments to the Consumer Act have emphasis on that. Second slide. Just for educational purposes, we have 8 rights of the consumer and 5 responsibilities. So for those of you who've been active listeners of our weekly program, I guess these are no-brainer the product, services we're buying, we take action, the social concern, environmental awareness, and solidarity. So I'm happy that in today's meeting we have a representative from Philippine Coalition for Consumer Welfare, who is a consumer organization for that matter. The next slide appears to be simple amendments to some provisions of the Consumer Act, but actually these amendments are to bring the Consumer Act to the digital age or to the electronic commerce. So we have to provide for a definition of consumer, not only those consumers that goes to the supermarket or Mr. Street Food here of Paglata, but also consumers that goes online. I didn't hear that we have representatives of online commerce here. The same is true with our definition of consumer products and services. These are those that are bought online or through any other form of digital commerce. Credit card has also been redefined and expanded to be used as an instrument for purchases in online commerce. We also expanded the definition of mass media not only to the traditional print, radio, television, but also to text messages and computer and internet or social media for that matter. For sales promotion, we actually made this more business friendly by now providing implementing agencies a leeway to approve sales promotion from as quick as the same day to a maximum of 30 days. Now, each implementing agency will have to provide its own mechanism how to do it and what kind of sales promotion need to be to secure a permit or those that need not secure a permit anymore. And also an emphasis on product standards, as always products have to be complying with our established international and national standards. The next slide also keep attuned to electronic commerce or the digital commerce. We will now provide that any publication of IRR, not only in the official gazette, but in the department agency official web portal, should be considered legitimate and would entail the effectivity of the IRR. Particularly in the national standards, IRR is so voluminous with so many annexes. We spend so much money in newspaper advertisement. We feel that publication in our website or web portal is sufficient for the effectivity of the rules. Article 10 would grant implementing agency the power to automatically close and shut down establishment caught selling, distributing, manufacturing, producing, or importing substandard and resources products at site. At the moment, what we do is we go through process of issuing SOPOS or notice of violation, give the parties 48 hours, and then you file a formal charge, and then you go to hearing. Meantime, the store keeps on selling what is supposed to be not to be sold. The next amendment would be strengthening the product recall mechanism. Although this is very well effective in the area of medicine and drugs and cosmetics, as far as our friends from the DOH are involved because they have their own charter, the Public Act 9711, we want the Consumer Act to also follow that particular procedure of having the power to issue product recall for substandard products. On deceptive sales acts or practices, we have provided here an amendment that selling gift check, certificate, or gift card should not contain any expiry date. On the next proposed amendment under Article 52, the definition of unfair and consumer sales for taxes, these are actually Supreme Court decisions on consumer protection, which we propose to legislate so that it becomes now a permanent feature of the Consumer Act. This is the imposition to do an amendment that shall now require all LGUs to establish a timbangan and buying center and to have the responsibility to see to it that they are properly calibrated. The next slide, Article 68, provision on breach of warranty. We want private sector themselves to establish their own hotlines, not only the government. In DTI, we have our hotline and call center that is open Monday to Sunday from 8 to 5 p.m. This provision of the law will now require all of them to also maintain a consumer hotline or a service center for that purpose. The next slide, Article 77.A, is a WTO, an international agreement. We have to harmonize our labeling and packaging requirements to ensure that products that enter the Philippine market contains not only Filipino translation, at least English for foreign products. The next slide is on repair service obligation. Here the consumer should be given an option to replace only the damaged parts and not force the consumer to replace all other parts that are still in good condition. This was observed mostly in complaints dealers have received in terms of motor vehicle. And Article 110 on false, deceptive, or misleading advertisement. This will now include advertisement through internet, cyber shops, social networking, landline, and mobile phone. It's still connected with bringing the consumer up to the digital age. On the next proposal, that is the permit to conduct promotion, I think I mentioned this in the definition of sales promotion, that we shall provide for a minimum period and a maximum period. We do not want business to feel that the competition is hampered by very slow techniques done by the implementing agencies. At the moment, Mr. Chairman, in DTI, we have required a same-day permit for all sales promotion. Only those sales promotion that needs really lengthy verification of the terms and conditions that we are not able to comply with the same-day permit. The next slide will expand the National Consumer Affairs Council to include who are actually our regular partners already. This law will just legitimate, so to speak, their active membership in the NCEC. And these are the Banco Central ng Pilipinas, represented here by Susan Ravelo and Attorney Casala, Department of Energy, through Ms. Rodora here, and Department of Environment and Natural Resources. The existing per diamond of members is 500 pesos. As you increase the penalty, you also propose to increase the per dime of members of NCEC. Only those representing the consumers and the business sector. The government representatives shall not receive additional compensation. On administrative penalties, from a very cheap 500 pesos, and we are always criticized here, we are now providing for a minimum penalty, Mr. Chairman, and fellow resource persons to 50,000 pesos, or 5% of the gross value of the consumer products and services, subject to the complaint, whichever is higher. So, pinababa po 50,000 na, hindi na 500 pesos. And additional fine of not more than 1,000 pesos for each day of continuing violation. We have also proposed to increase, the criminal penalties from 50,000 to 1 million and imprisonment of 3 years, but not more than 7 years. So, those are the features, Chairman, of what we submitted to the Senate and also to the House of Representatives, and we feel that this can be a working job, together with those proposed by the Honorable Senator Miriam Santiago, Senator Recto. I think they proposed also long versions of the amendment, and some of the standalone proposal, like on exact change by Senator Miriam Santiago. I guess we can find some way to incorporate those in some of the sections of the present Consumer Act. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Yusek. Before I go to the other resource people, let me throw some questions now. The general themes to our amendments is basically updating the Consumer Act to accept updating it for the digital age. I think that's one. So have we talked to the e-commerce groups and have we gotten the comments of the digital groups that I know that the DPR has been working with? Are there inputs already here in these amendments?
In this draft itself, Mr. Chairman, but in another group, they call them the task force that is formulating the e-commerce roadmap. We submitted also the same ideas, but it will come in a roadmap platform. So, of course, one of the recommendations in the last presentation to the DPF is a legislation also to provide for that. So we said, we are already there. In fact, I request the member of the secretary that you have in fact endorsed to the Senate and the House this version of the law that contains already a portion of what the e-commerce roadmap would have to provide.
But siguro use it just as a advice or as a recommendation. We can even have a separate portion just on the digital transactions, no? Because people also don't know what to do, no, when they receive a fraudulent text, for example, or even if they buy something online and they didn't get exactly what they received, they're unsure about what to do, no? So I would suggest to the PWG we can invite those e-commerce groups of DTI, maybe aside from just including those words, no, we can even have a separate portion on that, no? Because, for example, I bought something, it didn't arrive, I want to get a refund. You don't go to the seller, you go to the credit card company or the bank, the issuing bank, no? So there are a lot of complications that have arisen because of the advancements in technology. I would suggest in the PWG we can have a separate portion, no? Another major thing I think is updating the penalties. I would just recommend, no, similar to what we did in the competition bill, competition law, to make it scalable. So it can be benchmarked according to the, I think the term used is real value, if I'm not mistaken. It's benchmarked to the real value at the time of the passing of the amendments. And then we review every 5 years. So every 5 years, the implementing agency can increase it based on the real value terms. So we don't come up with situations again where 23 years later, it's still 500 pesos, no? So that, I think, would be too difficult to put that into the law. My other question is, the current consumer act kasi is divided across different sectors, no? So meron ka on for example, on medicine and drugs, meron ka on, what we call this, different types of products, no? Nakadivide din siya. Have we already consulted the groups, the private sector groups in each of these how do you call it, each of these groupings, no? Regarding their comments. For example, kasi si chapter 2 is food, drugs, and cosmetics, and I think there's one on hazardous substances. There's one on, mayroon ba tayo on food dito? But, you know, each of these groups kasi have very specific needs and concerns. So have we consulted them already?
I'll answer your question, Mr. Chairman, but I would also like my friend, Atty. colleague, to complement and supplement. Yes, Your Honor. In fact, this amendment, this was also taken up in the last Congress, and we put the fact that there was already an earlier law after the Consumer Act that addresses most provisions on food, drugs, and cosmetic. I think it's the Public Act 9711. And most of the provisions of that law were really, I think, modeled after this Republic Act 1794. So to avoid duplication, and I think DOH agreed at that time, when we drafted the latest version of DPI, we proceed on the basis that name 711 is adequate already. So that's Attorney colleague can correct me if I'm wrong.
Later na, Attorney will listen to your recommendations. We'd like to acknowledge the presence of Senator Angara. Thank you, Senator, for coming today. Salamat. Senator Angara just finished his BICAM on the PESO Act now, which will be a law which can really help our employment issues in the Philippines. So congratulations, Senator. Okay, so you said that, so you have the part on updating digital, we have the part on updating the penalties, we have a few things on labeling, diba? What would be the other major themes of would those already be the major themes?
The improvement in the membership of the NCAC.
Is it a functioning council, Yusek? And do they meet regularly?
They do. In fact, this present NCAC members do meet regularly. And these are all appointed by the president now.
Sino yung private sector representatives in the Consumer Council?
Okay. In the business sector, the group, the Philippine Retailer Association and the Philippine Beauty Industry. Alright. And they nominated the person who will take the seat. In the consumer organization, there are four. One is the Nationwide Association of Senior Citizens, based in Marikina. The second one is the Consumer Rights to Safe Food. The third one is the National Federation of Women Advocates. And the fourth one is the Coalition of Consumer Welfare. If you remember, Mr. Chairman, during the past time there was this issue on the 7 Pepsi 349 stamp, something like that, well, alleged stamp.
Yes.
Pardon me for using the word. That's the group of the 349.
The 349.
This is already the right group.
Okay.
So those are the private sector, consumer and private sector members. Of course, the government, BPI, DOH, DA, now we propose to include Bangko Sentral and DOE.
Yusek, another question. And I saw that there was a provision on lessening the time for the promotions. Well, one, maybe we can clarify what means a BPI promotion. Because ang naging ko before, in this could be a miscommunication. Kahit daw po sa opisina, pag magpaparaffle, kailangan pa doon ng BPI representative. Is it true? Totoo ba yun? Or is it really just commercial establishments that need the BPI permit?
Ang bottom line yan, if you sell it to the general public for a consideration in the expectation that he will win something, it's covered.
But kunwari, clearly Christmas raffle, for example, hindi na ko kailangan yun.
Hindi lalo na kung membership clubs, homeowner associations, para sa kanila, just to respond.
Okay, maybe we can clarify that now because there's some confusion in the public. What needs a BPI promotion. Another question is with regard to regulation and permits. I think even Secretary Domingo has been pushing for lessening the permits, lessening the steps, lessening all of these things. Is there anything in the current law that requires a number of steps that we can lessen or we can simplify certain processes para mas madali po? Yung complaint system, can we simplify it further or so far okay tayo dyan? Wala tayong mga issues po dyan.
If I may suggest, not the complaint system, I think we're pretty much well covered.
Streamline na yan, no?
I guess what we need to streamline is the permit system and the implementation of product standards. I think that really needs improvement. We tried to improve it recently by administrative order, but we got a lot of criticisms from private sector because I guess they're not really ready for the easing of doing business. The primary consideration to them is safety, and safety to them means there should be prior permit before goods are released from the customs procedure. Very strict interpretation of how to comply with safety standards, which actually, if you will go through the ASEAN platform, will probably need some ease of doing without compromising safety. So that's why I guess that really reminded me, Mr. Chairman. In fact, many years ago, even before I joined it, there is a proposed amendment to Republic Act 4109. That is the law on product standards. That can be a separate bill here than the Consumer Act. Yeah.
So that won't be covered here, no?
No, okay.
Sige. So, anyway, these are all just food for thought, no, for the PWG when we put things together. Siguro yung, maybe just as a final question here, with regard to the complaints on the internet and mobile phone policy, whatever with our previous hearing, I would really suggest that we have a separate portion here para malinaw na po talaga kung ano yung pwedeng habulin ng mga consumers and subscribers po natin.
And ano yung talagang BPI, ano yung NPC.
Also yung and I always wonder na, pag meron tayong nahanap na Christmas lights na walang hologram, no, or walang dito man, definitely pwede mo i-confiscate. And definitely, pwede mo rin kasuhan yung establishment. No? With amendments, it's now much stronger, right? But pagdating sa mga SRP on goods, what is the power of DTI with regard to the SRP on goods? It's really recommendatory, di ba?
First, I'd like to clarify, it's not subject to the Consumer Act, the SRP.
Okay.
You can have learn that the Price Act, or Public Act 581, having established that clarification, when it comes to SRP, that is actually set by manufacturers in consultation with DTI, because we do some evaluation through what we call a fishbone formula. Which formula is already well known also to manufacturers and to also supermarkets and retailers. So, if we see whether the proposed increase is reasonable. Actually, you're correct. The way we do that, we go to the market and monitor whether it is doing SRP. If it is outside SRP, we issue only a surplus letter and explain. In most cases, it's just number one, the manager of the supermarket didn't change the price tag. So, meaning, hindi sa issue na mataas sa SRP. So, we accept that. Number two, sometimes it's a problem of systems letdown. The price in the tag is different from the price in the cashier. So, making the price higher than SRP. So, we accept this one explanation. The third is really those that sell it about SRP accept by the manufacturer and determined to do with justification by DTI. We issue a letter. In fact, when there is an adjustment of SRP, what my friend Steve will correct me later on, we do send a notice to them that this product or this company have a new SRP effective this date. So, bring it up. In fact, some supermarkets, and most of them, para hindi na sila masusurface letter ng DTI monitoring team, they want that letter, no? So they have changed the price. Yun na lang po talagang medyo ayaw mag-comply. The surplus letter, after 48 hours, pag ayaw pa lang mag-comply, we issue for my charge. We now apply a definition in the price act we call profiteering, because we relate SRP to reasonable prices, because it's a suggested retail price. It's not only suggested in the literal sense, but it's a price that translates that the price of that product is sold at its reasonable and true worth. So, apply namin yung profiteering. Yun na yung formal process niyan.
Okay, so ang ginagamit mo natin na batas is the price act.
Price act, not
and we use the provision profiteering.
Yeah, and profiteering, yes.
Okay.
Pero, kaunti na lang yan, Senator. In fact, maganda ang aming monitoring report basta may SRP.
Okay. Well, ako lang maybe, and again, it's not going to be the subject of this bill, but it's something we can look at later on, no? Because, profiteering is such a, it's a thin line, ano? It's a thin line. So, maybe we can strengthen the laws to really allow for clearer powers for DTI, but at the same time, also giving some leeway rin for our manufacturers, no? Because ang alam ko, meron tayong essential commodities list, diba? And that's really what kumbaga, everyone agrees already na pag essential commodity pa, your brand and your SKU is in that list. Yun, parang may pagka-sacred yun, diba? But what we check in the SRP is beyond that list, right? Iba ho yung essential commodities list, iba yung SRP list, right?
In fact, you will observe, Chairman, in the recently Competition Act, the section on the retailing cost, at the last moment, I think the repeal of the provision of the Price Act was deleted. So our understanding is we retain all powers under the Price Act. That's right. Presently worded. I mean, that's our...
I agree, no? In fact, for that reason, we didn't want to cut the legs of DTI, no? But definitely, and it's not a discussion for this particular hearing, but it's something I think that we can start discussing down the line with the private sector also. how to have a better delineation. Steve.
Just for everyone's information, PTI's list of SRPs come from manufacturers. All we ask is yung consultation lang to inform us that, this manufacturer has asked if you can apply it SRP because they're applying SRPs at very low margins, not enough for us to make anything, 1.9% for major products that we buy, So maybe because that's all we ask is that if you could just, consult us so that we could inform us so we can tell you whether it's reasonable. I mean, when you say profiteering, it's subjective, or 1.9% doesn't cover costs at all. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to ask the body, what is the real period for returning a product? Is it really 2 weeks? Is it 2 weeks under the consumer?
There's no period.
There's nothing in the law which specifies the. So vendors are free to.
It's detective.
So we don't have a law on products we just want to return. We're not, and
For any reason at all?
yeah, it must be defective. That's the provision of the law right now. What provision is that? Oh.
On warranties also.
On warranties, and you have how long to return that?
Well, if there's a complaint, we subject it to mediation, and then the Danish scorecard requires us to complete mediation in 10 working days. So it's either there's a settlement or there's none. Settlement would require either 3 things, what we call the 3 R's under the DPI. It's either repaired, replaced, or there is a refund.
Mediation, you have to go through mediation
Yes,
for a 100 peso product or
sometimes 100 pesos, that's why in the proposed amendments,
hindi dapat pag minimal value ano na yun?
wala na. Sa establishment lang yan, sir. Result na yan. Hindi na-abot sa DPI.
Right. So what cases reach the DTI for mediation usually?
Normally, detective for your return, number 1. Number 2 is mga damit, sapatos ng babae.
Kasi sila yung tapong gano'n.
Number 3,
Tanggalin pa rin.
appliances,
Right.
television, refrigerator, everything in the aircon. Basta summer season, natin complain sa aircon because many people buy it.
What is the period for mediation sa DTI? Once it reaches the level of the DTI, gaano katagal ho yung...
Yung mediation, sir,
Yes.
10 araw lang ang namin
That's a maximum.
it's our scorecard. Otherwise, you don't get the points, meaning it affects our ability to get our annual PBD for performance. It does.
10 days from submission to decision.
Yes. No. From the time you file the complaint, the same day, they should give notice of mediation. We're not very technical. We don't need a subpoena. We don't use a text, an email, a telephone call. I mean, all forms of communication.
That's great. That's commendable, sir. Mr. Chair, you also mentioned the mobile and the internet providers. What exactly is the delineation correct? Because, we get a lot of texts about people who are unhappy with their service and they want to know where they can complain. And what I just say is go to the NTC. Is that the correct answer?
Okay. No, good. I have to come at the meeting but I'm entertained with the manager because people can push for this. We sign a memorandum of agreement with the National Communication Commission and really define which complaint goes to them and which complaint goes to us. Number 1, which complaint goes to BPI. Number 1 is warranties. I mentioned that already. Number 2, misleading advertisements. All issues on text spam, text promotion, internet speed, all those technical issues goes to NTC. So, I don't have a copy of anyone but I'm sure I submitted a copy to solicitor on that. We delineated our responsibility so that, when the vendors complain to one another and then magpapalitan na, we don't do that anymore.
What if it's a text spam of a misleading advertisement? What if it's a text spam that is misleading?
That's NTC,
NTC.
not BPI.
Yeah.
Maybe to clarify, the the spam is NPC, but if the spam is an advertisement wherein a subscriber purchases that package and does not get what is advertised, then they can go to TTI. Just like what you said, diba? Iba yun.
If it is on trust.
Yes, na kunwari, the fact that it's being spammed is with NPC. But if you purchase what the advertisement given to you and you didn't get what was in the promised service, then they go to TTI.
That's DTI. Yeah.
Would it not be better to just leave it to one body? It's difficult for, I mean, a lot of these people are just regular folk, di ba? They incur a cost by going to a certain office.
I want to, if it is to DTI only, there may be some aspect of the complaint that would require technical regulation that we don't have expertise at the moment.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I wonder if that distinction has been made clear to the public, Mr. Chair.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet, because it's new.
Yes, even to me, it's not exactly clear. It's
Actually, that's the subject of the memorandum circular also that was released a Saturday ago, or 2 Saturdays ago. No?
Yeah. And last question, Mr. Chair, is regarding the National Consumer Affairs Council, or NCAC, which is being proposed here. What exactly would be the role of this council, Mr. Chair?
It works as an oversight of everything the implementing agency does under the Consumer Act. It may propose policy changes. It may attend hearings at Congress and comment on proposed legislation like that is in the agenda now. It also conduct consumer advocacy, education, they go around. You know? But they always work with the implementing agency. Like they work with TTI, they also work with DOH when they go there. So they share their own expertise as far as consumer welfare. But it's not a full-time council. I mean, they have a small office in DTI by way of a secretariat function, but they also represent different interests in the consumer business sector.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, last 2 questions actually. Regarding the physical premises where people can complain, for DTI, where is it? Is it in
for NCI, it's in Makati, India. But for the rest of the country, we've got DTI offices in all provinces. And we have judicial directors in all provinces.
And if they go to the DTI, what are the possible sanctions or recourse or solutions that are provided there?
But the consumer complaint is handled and treated, repair, replace, and refund.
Repair. You can mandate the
Well, they agree in mediation, if not through the adjudication process.
right. And if the manufacturer or the seller still refuses to, what's the recourse?
There is another appeal provision in the Act, assuming it goes to the appeal provision, then becomes final, then it runs to the usual execution of judgment. It could be a little bit messy because you need to services to execute the judgment. But very clear.
Who do they appeal?
Consumer appeal to the Office of the President.
I see. It's either the seller or the consumer can appeal to the OP.
But in my experience, Mr. Senator, this would involve high profile cases, like maybe the high value commodity like automobile or a computer for that matter, but not the smaller one, but are bought in at the shelf in department store or supermarket, not those kinds of goods.
Right. And may filing fees ba yan, usually? May filing fees?
No, we do not accept any filing fee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Angara. Yusek, just to add to the line of questioning of Senator Angara, yung karamihan mo ng mga complaints, are high value items or lesser value items?
Mostly lesser value.
Okay. And in your experience now dealing with department stores, the retailers, the PRA is part of the Consumer Council, umaabot pa ba sa DTI or they settle it already among themselves?
For those retailers that have been awarded what we call the seal of excellence, for those that apply for a consumer welfare test, doesn't go to DTI anymore. In fact, our statistics show that the number of complaints is at that level is much higher, I can submit that to the committee, than those that are resolved through that process of mediation.
But the best kasi is it's all resolved at the place of sale. Diba?
Yes, yeah.
And hindi na ako maabot sa mediation because of course there's cost to that. Baka mas mahal pa yung pamasahe at yung oras ko punta sa
Hindi lang yan dito man kung lahat ng statistics ng gagawin pupunta sa dito, I don't think we will agree on 10 working days. Impossible.
So the goal really is to have it settled at the place of sale.
Sure.
I can ask Steve, you also about 10 years and pure gold na. Kapag mo nagbabalik, ano yung process ninyo? Like ako, nung isang araw, bumili ako ng mani sa Bustan's supermarket, tapos pag uwi ko, butas, may opening siya, no? So of course, parang hindi mo nang eat that anymore kasi may konti siyang slip na sa side. So we returned it and it was replaced without any questions, no? In fairness, no? Kayo, Steve, in your group, ano ba yung process?
In general, we can return those types of items na may sira, defective in packaging, no? We can return them to the manufacturer. So without any question, normally we just have it changed, have the item changed. Or if they want to buy, change it for something else, we do agree to
Anong
that.
percentage of those returning do it because of fraud? Or it's hardly the case?
Meron din, no? Meron mga abusive na consumers, no? Hindi natin ma-address yun. That's why we have to be, ma-discouraged, no? In checking whether the legitimate yung return, no? Ng isang consumer. No? Sometimes, binili hindi pa expired, then sinusulit. Di ba, another product na of the same type, no? And then they show you the receipt na, kabibili lang ito. Pero actually, naunang nabili yung isa, nag-expire na. So, mga ganyan, wala kang magagawa. We accept, and then we return to the manufacturer, no? Which means, I cannot question the manufacturer. Kasi yung manufacturer, nagpapadala ng merchandisers to make sure na umiikot ang produkto eh. So, yung top na sila, bakit naiiwan pa yung mga matagal ng, na-expire na.
Yung percentage of the fraud versus percentage of the legitimate, anong hatian nun usually?
Maliit lang yung fraud, no? Most of the time naman, legitimate naman ang concerns ng consumer.
Let me ask our friend computer sa team. Ano yung experience niyo sa returning of goods?
Sa returning of goods po,
Yeah, thank you.
tinatanggap naman namin pabalik yung items. Basta po naman, meron silang resibo na may papakita dun sa sa pagbabalik nila ng items na sa amin talaga binili kasi otherwise, pag-iisipan namin na baka mamaya fraudulent din yung pagbabalik nila sa amin.
But if you have the receipt, usually parang automatic na yan, ano?
Opo, if they have the receipt naman, madali lang naman po sa amin yung mga ganong pagbabalik.
And may rules ba kayo kung kailangan defective yung produkto, kailangan may sira or expired or even, nagkamali lang. I wanted to buy the blue toothpaste pero yung nabili ko red. Pwede ko ba ipalit yun or hindi na pwede?
With respect to that, sir, store operations po kasi yung tungkol sa question nyo na yan. So
So you're not sure?
I'm not certain with that. Pero yung sa amin lang po, as long as meron naman pong resibo at may babalik naman po sa amin na, at makikita namin na sa amin talaga yung problem, we will accept
And intact yung produkto mo. I guess that's yung talagang binabantayan nyo. No? Okay, sige. Let's go to our research speakers. Thank you, Yusuf, for those questions. Let's start with BSP because you have the largest delegation today. I'm actually not sure where there's 5 of you here, no? And more in the back. Dr. Amado, do you have any comments or suggestions with regard to the Consumer Act? And may I know what particular interest does BSP have with the Consumer Act?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In general po, we totally support the initiative to take a closer look at the Consumer Act. It's almost 23 years old by now. So, marami na hong nagbago sa industriya at sa merkado at kailangan na hong pagtuunan ng pansin. Ang interest po ng BSP is focused on Title IV, which is consumer credit. There are a couple of things that we wish to highlight. Number one, in Title IV, if my own memory serves me right, Mr. Chairman, it's the only title that does not talk of a regulator. So meron po tayong consumer credit na nasa Consumer Act pero wala akong malinaw na regulator. Samantala po sa Constitution, nandun po yung money, credit, and banking that is bestowed upon the monetary authority. Number two, Mr. Chair, a product like a credit card, it really still surprises a lot of people that on paper there is no regulator for a credit card. What we are using right now is a DOJ opinion. I think 1992, I think it was still then Secretary Diron who issued that opinion that for as long as the credit card is issued by a bank, then it's clearly a BSP, it's a central bank matter. But if it's issued by a non-bank Ang tanda ko po dapat mag-usap ang DTI at SEC ba, o DTI at NEDA or some other agency. Right now, wala na po tayong credit card na hindi issued ng bangko. But 7 years ago, we did have those things. Number 3, Mr. Chairman, is the title talks of consumer credit. And today, as we see in the market, it's financial products are more than just consumer credit. When you talk about microfinance, NGOs, what exactly would that be? Who would be the regulator? What are the guidelines involved? When you talk about on the principles that Yusek Vic mentioned, paano po kung may naingganyang bumili ng FXTN 2017, which is a government security, tapos hindi niya po pala kaya yung risk involved, pwede ba hong ibalik yun? Ano ho ba ang categorization at characterization ng securities? Is it now consumer credit when in fact it's an investment? No? So the context of what is a financial product needs to be reviewed, particularly in the context of what the chair mentioned as the digitization of the current market. Number 4 would be the issue of how do we regulate a really fast-moving market? 2 years ago, we would not have even imagined a discussion about bitcoins. Today, you can go to Europe and there are ATMs on bitcoins. You can buy airline tickets. You can buy airline tickets, Mr. Chair, with bitcoins. Or with due respect to our colleagues in the insurance industry, the hybrid products like a variable unit link is both an investment and an insurance. So how does one regulate that? Is it regulated as an insurance product inherently, or is it regulated inherently as an investment? And again, the context of the digitized financial market comes into play. Which brings me to the 5th point, which has been raised over and over, the redress mechanism. Kami po sa Bangko Sentral, meron po kaming tanggapan specifically to take in consumer complaints and also to do financial literacy campaign. Si Attorney Casala po ang head ng aming Financial Consumer Protection Department. And I can tell you from the 7 years that I've been at the BSP, sari-sari ko talaga complaints na matatanggap namin dyan. No? From elderly people who claim they were inherited with gold bullions by presidents ago. Kaya lang po yung nakalagay doon sa certificate nila, mas malaki pa doon sa reserves ng BSP. Or you have simple matters like bakit may charge itong credit card ko na o hindi ko naman nagamit, nasa Saudi ako, bakit nasa Pilipinas yung card, or vice versa. Most common complaint today is charges in Bulgaria or in Asia, but I'm Manila based. No? So how is that rectified? And then there is no clear quasi-judicial power or some outside of mediation. Ang lagi po namin sinasabi, Mr. Chair, is pinag-aharap po namin yung institution at saka yung complainant. Ang pakiusap po namin, pag-usapan po natin to. Kasi pag lumapos po tayo dito na hindi po tayo nagkaayusan, korte na ho kasi ang susunod nito. And it's a very, very expensive and a very tedious process. Unfortunately, Mr. Chair, we've also had cases where a foreigner had to fly in to complain. But our hands are also tied by law. There is nothing in the BSP Charter or there is nothing in the Consumer Act that allows us to take definitive action, even though some of the documentations appear to be very clear. Another recent legislative issue that arose was a complainant, a Filipino who invested abroad and did not prosper. He was lodging a complaint here. Under what grounds will those complaints be entertained, even though the documents did say it is covered by a foreign jurisdiction? And finally, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to share with you one of the milestone provisions that the Monetary Board approved last year was the Consumer Protection Framework. So we will now, starting December 11, after a 1-year transition, we will now actually rate banks on their consumer protection ability. So there are 5 principles, they will be rated, we will actually come in to examine yung kanilang mga materials, kung yung font size ay 3 na sila lang nakakabasa, or are there enough disclosures on the product. We have identified what is a product disclosure statement, what should be the information that's there, so that nobody can actually say, I did not know. Ang pinaka-problema po talaga doon is kung ang marketing natin is in the context of kikita ka dito, marami na talagang bibili. But financial products, by their very nature, there is really no guaranteed return. So the context of both the redress, the financial literacy, as well as an overall framework for how do we handle now financial products is our primordial concern. And right now, Mr. Chair, our sense is that, and we've been working at this for the last couple of years, our sense is Title IV as it is may be too limiting to specifically address the needs of the financial consumer. Ang pakiusap po namin is for consideration of the Senate is a separate, i-carve out na po natin yung financial product. Mas madali po yung gawin. And then it becomes a very centralized bill with a clear decision on who is the regulator, what's a financial product, what are the powers that will be provided for the oversight body, whoever that oversight body is, Mr. Chair. As it is right now, the market is clearly fragmented. A clear case, and it's my last point, Mr. Chair, in the interest of time, we recently amended the Truth in Lending Act. We basically said, hindi na ho pwede na pag nag-deal kayo sa customer niya, may nakatagong mga surcharges. It's very common, for example, in some real estate type of transactions, may charges, may margins, may fees. So the method of pricing was prescribed, and there is a requirement to disclose the effective cost using that price. But we also recognize, Mr. Chair, that there will be entities outside the purview of the Bangko Sentral. So what we did was we worked with the SEC, we worked with PDIC, Insurance Commission, and the CDA, so that practically the same regulation was issued under their own respective letterheads, no? Effectively binding everyone. Now, that's good, that's well and good, because we have that working relationship in the Financial Sector Forum, but the context there, Mr. Chair, is unless there is clear delineation on who is a credit regulator, enforcement becomes a problem, because you can basically arbitrage across products. Again, Mr. Chair, I think I've said quite a bit, so in the interest of time, I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Assistant Governor. So are you suggesting that a separate law be crafted for the consumer protection and financial products?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Simply because that it may require a parallel discussion separate from the goods and services that are being talked about here. Also because in the current practice today, these products and services are scattered through several regulatory agencies.
Okay, I don't mind let's work for the committee not to be frank, but sayang naman yung opportunity rin since we already have this Title IV. Is there anything in Title IV maybe that needs to be deleted, or because we are amending it already, so through this process we will have to tackle all of these titles, all of these chapters. I don't mind if you want to have another law on that, no? Of course that will probably go to the Committee on Banks. But with regard to Title IV, is there anything there? So you're saying kasi Title IV is it's too limited, no? It doesn't really tackle everything. But would you be amenable to amending Title IV to at least present general principles, and then maybe the specific financial product type of delineation can go in that future bill?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we would be certainly very happy to work at the technical level with your staff. At the very least, I would suggest a couple of things, Mr. Chair. Number one, Title IV has to clearly state who is the credit regulator.
Okay.
Number two, there has to be a clear definition, discussion, whether in principle or in practice, what is a financial product, because Title IV is consumer credit only.
Yeah.
So non-credit products will not be covered there, but it begs the question, then
Who covers that, diba? Yeah.
it falls by the wayside, no? And there are, even for credit products like a credit card, wala akong regulator yun right now eh. We are just holding on to that DOJ opinion. The rest, Mr. Chair, we can basically work on the technical details, but I would imagine that those three would be the, or if I may add also the redress. Because if there's a complaint, but by law we cannot act on it, kawawa po ang taong bayan.
Yeah, definitely. No. So we'll welcome that, sir. Your comments and suggestions on Title 4. If we don't wish to go into the level of detail that would require another bill, that's fine. But maybe some of these, some of these major themes we can tackle already. At the minimum, I get it now. You said right that if there is no agency specified to tackle a redress, it still goes to DTI. Kumbaga kayo po yung catch-all. Kung wala ako sa batas. Kasi alam mo namang wala ka pupuntahan, di ba?
Ganun na nga.
Ganun mo yun, di ba? Okay, so we'll welcome that na PWG. Our friends from SEC are here. I think a number of issues tackled will fall under SEC. Attorney, would you want to give a comment or any suggestions regarding the Consumer Act?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for inviting the Securities and Exchange Commission to participate in this discussion on the proposed amendments to the law to strengthen consumer protection. Actually, we would like to align our own mandate of investor protection with that of consumer protection because, well, at this point, with the advent and with the deluge of scams, investment scams, pyramiding schemes, Ponzi schemes, MLM, which are actually investment scams, actually there's at this time it's difficult to differentiate already because the scammers have already become sophisticated. They have come to know the distinctions in the law. Some say because they have a product, their business, their business model incorporates the product, they allege that they are not an investment scam. Along these lines, we are in support of the proposed amendments to strengthen the power of the Department of Trade and Industry. Particularly, we are in support of the proposed amendments to give the Department of Trade and Industry the power to issue cease and desist orders, because this would align the powers of the DTI with that of the SEC. We are very particular about this battle against investment scams, which has victimized and which has reached amounts up to billions.
Attorney, the concerns of consumers with regard to investment scams, are they already within the current Consumer Act, or there's a need to update the Consumer Act with regard to those types of developments?
Mr. Chairman, the present Consumer Act already defines what a pyramiding scheme is, what is multi-level marketing. Well, it defines the framework or the business model. However, for those with a criminal mind, they would work along the lines of the gray area between what is the definition of a Ponzi, an MLM, pyramiding scheme, and interface that with what what can be introduced or what can be marketed as what appears to be a legitimate investment.
So, are you saying, sir, may deficiency na yung batas? Hindi na sa meron na may pangangailangan na po update or to clarify?
What we would like to encourage is greater cooperation, more interaction between the DTI and the SEC. That mechanism need not be in the law. I think we have present MOAs already with the DTI. Our interest is to strengthen the DTI in addressing scams, which prima facie or at first blush does not appear to be a Ponzi, MLM, or pyramiding, nor does it clearly appear to be an investment scam. Because what is important is at the earliest time possible to stop the operations of this of the scammers. Of the record, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we're back on the record.
Well, actually, we would like the DTI to have the same power, especially in those instances MLM, Ponzi, or pyramiding?
Well, ano ho, the Direct Selling Association of the Philippines, which largely is the, parang represents the legitimate MLM and direct selling groups. They have an 8-point test, which is actually it's a good test, no? It's one of the most shared memes that we have on our site. There's an 8-point test there, if any of those 8 points you don't pass, then you should be a little worried or check it further, But definitely, that's something, again, kumbaga, in 23 years ago, hindi pa siguro ganun ka widespread, but these days, almost every other month, you hear of a scam or a scheme that took millions from our country. So you're not looking at amendments to the Consumer Act, but we're looking at maybe mechanisms to further the interagency support.
And we'd like to strengthen the powers of the TTI to be able to
CDO. That can be an amendment.
the operations of scams.
Alright, thank you. That can be an amendment to the Consumer Act, Yusuf. So, the Secretariat naman is putting all this together, and we'd also welcome that, of course, in a paper, so we can include it. Alright, sige, FDA, so Attorney Polly, you have any comments or suggestions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In behalf of my principal, I respectfully manifest that the FDA fully supports the measures insofar as further enhancing the consumer interest. The Consumer Act was enacted sometime 1992-1993, and since then there has been a lot of changes in the regulatory landscape, aimed at protecting public health. Notably of which is, of course, the food safety law, and right now commercial transaction is becoming popular insofar as the use of online, and of course to align this law insofar as the cybercrime law is concerned in some aspect, because there's a provision in the cybercrime law that covers as a catch-all provision all special laws, including Consumer Act, of course, for us the use of online, and of course to align this law insofar as the cybercrime law is concerned in some aspect, because there's a provision in the cybercrime law that covers as a catch-all provision all special laws, including Consumer Act, of course. And with that, of course, sir, subject to the further discussion of the TWG, the FDA and the DOH fully supports the
Thank you, Attorney. So you'll expect your position paper with regard to the amendments of the Consumer Act. Marami rin dito about labeling, nutrition, mga ganyan, diba? So I would think that will be under the ambit of FDA.
Yes, sir. In fact, the initiative to amend the Consumer has been, since the 12th, 13th, and even Congress, yes, and we've been actively participating in this initiative. So, yeah, the labeling are all in this, sir. We will present that.
Thank you.
Sir.
Attorney Nimbo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On behalf of the Intellectual Property Office, we also echo the support of FDA in this initiative on consumer welfare, because as we all know, intellectual property violations has two aspects. One is the right of the IP owner or the brand owner, the patent holder, and the copyright owner, and also the resulting damages that it occurred to the consumers. Mm-hmm. So in this regard, we at the IPO would like we welcome that we can be involved in the framing of the policy on this matter.
So we'll welcome our position paper ng team PWG. What's the last agency is DOE, Mr. Moro? Bakit? Meron bang part dito on electricity? Meron ba?
No, sir. I think the participation of the DOE will deal on the inclusion of LPG,
I see.
kerosene in the Price Act, di ba?
Okay.
As implement in the basic commodities definition, sir.
Okay.
As implemented also by the DTI. Initially, we find Article 10 of the proposed amendment of greater interest to stop immediately the sale of dangerous and unsafe products like substandard LPG cylinders, which is also included in your
LPG law.
support LPG bill. Yeah.
Though at present we work closely with DTI to stop the proliferation of these substandard cylinders, sir. So the DOE would like to express its manifestation to support this initiative. We will submit our position paper to this amendment, and we will work closely, especially that there is a TWG that we organize.
Thank you. So we now go to the private sector. We start with Attorney Santos. Any comments from PRA? Were you consulted with these amendments, sir? Or no, not yet. So we're consulting you now. So when you're ready to present your position paper, the committee would accept that now. But in the meantime, do you have any comments? Initial comments from what is presented today?
Thank you, Senator, for the kind words. Frankly, I just discovered today's hearing from Twitter. So,
Our Twitter.
yes. So, I rushed all the way from Quezon City to attend this hearing.
Hindi naman po ito katapusan na hearing. As I said earlier, this will be a series of hearings. So, but we're happy you're here, no? And we're happy you follow our Twitter account more reportedly. So,
It was by pure happenstance.
okay. So, I guess you're not ready for comments yet, sir, no?
Actually, Senator, I'm actually sitting here. I'm attending this meeting wearing two hats. First, I represent my principal organization, the Philippine Retailers Association. At the same time, I'm also sitting as a representative of the National Consumer Affairs Council, of which I'm a private sector representative. And as mentioned earlier during the part of the hearing that I was able to catch, a lot has been made out of the fact the Consumer Act was first enacted in 1992, and since then many laws have been passed to strengthen consumer protection law. And since the enactment of the Consumer Act, aside from the four agencies that were identified in the law as the main proponents of consumer protection, you now have more agencies with the responsibility of protecting consumer rights, for example, energy, telecoms, and so on. And in my discussions with both the PRA and with the NCAC, one of the things that we were able to discuss was the need to make consumer laws consumer friendly. Meaning, because of the proliferation of laws that have been enacted since 1992, and especially during this administration where you had a slew of laws that were enacted specifically to strengthen aspects of consumer rights. For the average consumer, they might find it a little bit difficult to do the research on or to find what are the rights regarding certain aspects of their consumer lives. So, off the top of my head, I think maybe it would be worth the committee's time and maybe worth the Senate's time is to be able to gather all of these laws and perhaps codify them in such a way for consumers like myself, again now I'm going as a consumer, when I need redress or when I need to find out what my rights are, all of these rights and remedies are available in one handy compendium instead of, for example, what has happened prior to the enactment of the data petition law, where in our books we have so many laws that protect the competition, but they're everywhere. It's very difficult for say a business or a consumer that was aggravated by unfair competitive acts to do the research on what laws that will apply to them. So in the same way that in consumer law, that for any consumer anywhere in the Philippines who wants to seek redress or wants to find out what his rights are under the law, I would like to suggest perhaps that to be able to put all of these beneficial pieces of legislation into one handy source. And that is, I think, what I would like to suggest.
Yeah, thank you for that. I totally agree. In fact, the Consumer Act cannot be seen by itself because so many laws afterwards have actually amended portions of that. And in the TWG process, we'll try to have that landscape, no? And we'll be able to see what other laws amended this, and as what BSPL said, what laws are lacking, no? In terms of further detailing, no, the Consumer Act. Because actually yung lemon law which we passed last year is parang ano rin yun, Consumer Act rin yun, but specifically for four-wheel vehicles, no? So it would be good to put together all of our consumer protection laws, even AOs, no, or DOs, and we can really see, no, kung ano ba talaga yung pwedeng puntahan ng mga kababayan natin. But the way I see it, the Consumer Act, there's a part there which are general principles, no? In fact, some of the amendments are on general principles. There's parts there in the amendments. I think it goes into some specific areas, some of which have been amended already by other laws. But my general understanding is, this is the ito yung basis, no? Kung walang special law detailing a special procedure or powers or functions or whatever regulator, everything else falls under the Consumer Act. No? Yusuf, that's right, diba?
Right. In fact, just to cite an example, in the lemon law, we require specific steps to be taken for attempts for the same defect and a PIP attempt before you can avail of the rights under the lemon law. However, if at the first defect a consumer wants to file a complaint, the same lemon law says other trade and industry law is still today. So a lot of complaints now are still filed under the Consumer Act on warranties. Yeah. So it's really the fallback. The Consumer Act is the fallback for consumer protection.
What's the term nga for that, attorney? Yung it's the new general law. It's the no, special law versus special law over general. Over general, no? So this is the general law. Tama, the Consumer Act is general law, and then we have the special law. Yeah. So thank you, attorney. Rick, Tito Rick, do you have any suggestions here or comments?
Yes, first of all, I would like to thank Damo for my attendance. Nag-uusap na kami sa FB tsaka sa Twitter. Well, actually, the Philippine Commission for Consumer Welfare, matagal na to since 1998 pa. Yung bago lang yung pangalan, actually. So, I represent from peasant, farmers, youth leaders, middle income group, underemployed, mga person with disability. And sabi nga sa akin ni Miss Romero kanina, mukhang lahat ang concern ngayon sa'yo. Pero actually hindi. Ito concern natin lahat. Yung experiences natin sa pang-araw-araw. Nagtatrabaho sa Senado, mga cameraman lahat. Ngayon, itong kanito, itong administrasyon na ito, marami nagawa when it comes to naging reactive sila in terms of consumers complaint. In fact, ino-educate nila yung consumer through consumer ibatar. Doon sa ABS-CBN, yung Big at saka si Alvin Chico and Sammy Maglaya. Most of my group nagte-text din. Okay, tapos sinasabi nila yung mga complaints nila. Pero ang nagiging problema lang, hindi masyadong na-address kasi kailangan pupunta ka pipirma mo yung complaints mo. Underemployed, middle income group, pupunta sa fast food, makikita yung nakapost na mga foods doon. Okay, pag-order nila, pipicture nila kasi ay ibibigay sa kanila kung puno-puno ang bawa yung Sunday, so ay ibibigay kalahati. So parang naloloko sila, nabibisip sila. Kaya nag-research ni Yusuf Dimagi pa yung sa Putin advertising and punishment. Yun isa sa magandang sigurong trabahin. Ano problema na yung dito yung implementation? Pag in-implement na, wala sila eh. Hindi makakasama yung mga Senate staff o ordinary tao na bibigay sa iyo pangalan pupunta doon. Kaya tama yung sabi ni Senator Pan kanina, malaking gastos pupunta pa sa inyo. So, dapat yung DTI talagang susuriin lahat itong mga complaints nito at kung pwede, i-address nila na may resulta.
So that's Yusuf Dimagi ba? Alam ko your hotline is quite an active hotline. Kapag tumawag ako, oy, malit yung nakuha kong ice cream ko dun sa picture. What is
basically get your name, contact details, where you buy it, and then accept it. And then if it is a complaint that DTI under the law have to handle, the next day it's endorsed to the relevant bureau for mediation.
Kunwari, iba yung picture dun sa restaurant iba yung nakuha mo. If that were the case, would it be referred or...
No, DTI na.
Kaya nga, so that would be referred to a bureau.
To the mediation division of DTI.
Okay. Kung hindi willing na pumunta yung tao, pumirma ng forms and go through the process, would DTI still pursue that?
The call itself is the complaint already because we called to the call center.
So, hindi kailangan ng physical verification?
No.
Okay. And you would?
Pagdating sa mediation, identify na is the complainant.
Oh, but would you at least call that, how do you say that, would you verify with the fast food chain, for example, kung may tatawag man lang, uy, may nag-complain sa inyo,
You will notify the food chain to appear on the mediation date.
Okay. But you would tell them what the complaint was about?
Yes, kasama na yan. Kung may feature yan based on the agent, meron degenerate na file yan.
Okay. Kung hindi mo pumunta yung nag-complain, kasi nga, may trabaho siya, for example, what would happen to that complaint?
We allow 3 times. So, in 3 times, hindi din natin complainant because we cannot keep the complaint alive. We archive it. We do not dismiss. Okay. Put under archive. Then the complainant, he can divide it anytime. Basta, he does not, it applies with 2 years prescriptive period. Meron pong prescriptive period ng consumer complaint.
Kailangan talaga pumunta. At kumbaga, it will not prosper unless the complainant does attend the mediation.
Yes, or his authorized representative. And normally we allow that only for the elderly or senior citizen. Pero kung marito, we have to appeal.
Okay. Can they authorize a consumer group, for example, to appeal for them?
Kasi hindi, kasi the act defines who are providers of the protection. You should be a consumer. Meaning you're the one who buys service or good for personal
So, kumbaga, so
in qualification.
so yung petitioner, kumbaga, the petitioner needs to be there. Okay. Maybe
The consumer group can assist, can help in the process, but cannot represent a complainant. Okay, so meron din, so of course we are weeding out also from mga fake complaints, no? So that's part of the
I totally understand, no, the need to weed out yung mga peke because sometimes, it can be used kasi to harass rin ang establishment. But baka we can take a look at maybe some type of verification on DTI's end. Maybe even not to go through a complaint process, but if there are complaints and medyo marami na yung complaints for a certain establishment, and sa totoo lang naman, people are really unwilling. I'm not going to spend a day in DTI for a 40 peso food item, no? But maybe we can find it somewhere here, but you still have the powers or the capacity to check. Kasi for these establishments, masabihan lang sila, it's already something, diba? Or even if you verify it and you post it on your site, diba? That's actually quite major, no? So maybe we can find a way such that sa competition commission kasi multi-proper powers, multi-proper powers yung commission to check, diba? Maybe we can put it here that DTI has the powers to check also certain establishments, no?
in the past it happened on a face-to-face basis if the consumer welfare officer noticed that a lot of complaints on one establishment was filed, we call the establishment. No? Pero that's not part of the procedure already. In the context that you mentioned it, we do call the attention that why are there so many complaints against you? I mean, what happened? Like that.
Actually, in other countries kasi where the consumer groups are more vocal or more powerful, usually sila yung nag-lodge ng complaints sa government agencies on behalf of
and they handle the resolution.
They handle the resolution, they appear. Diba? Ganun yun, diba? When they publish their own private sector consumer reports, that's the way it goes in other countries, no?
But it's a good example in ASEAN.
Only private sector po yung
Yes, but SURO, well, budget and the support Consumer Protection Officers of Singapore.
So, yun yung government lang yung pondo. But in the US, alam ko in the US, it's really private sector. Yung mga consumer groups.
We call it the Better Business Bureau. That's really 100% private sector.
In the Singapore, US.
In the US, yung BBB ang tawag nila dyan.
Okay. Mr. Chair, on last point for US.
Actually, but going along that line, Mr. Chairman, in the proposed amendment, there is a section there that we want to strengthen consumer organization. Actually, that's really gearing up to something bigger, maybe 5 years or 10 years. Because in ASEAN, in the cooperation ASEAN, we also really wanted consumer organizations to be assisting government. Because everybody in ASEAN government knows its limited resources. But with cross-border transaction already, by 2015, we are talking here of 600 million consumers as the target base for businessman. So, lumalaki yung number of complainants. And cross-border, when I say cross-border, in the Philippines, we cannot reject. If a tourist from Singapore comes here and files a complaint, we have to accept it. Conversely, yung Pilipino doon, Singapore, nakabili ng substandard products sa Lucky Plaza, we file the complaint to our counterpart Singapore.
Yeah, and it's happened because sometimes we receive mga messages that bumili ho kami ng camera sa Hong Kong, hindi naman ho namin magpalit. You know, obviously, what can we do? Diba, sa Philippine government representative, diba? But, so yeah, we'll definitely tackle that. So Rick, maybe on our final point, because it's already 12:30. Well, sayang, kasi ang dami po concern ibigay. Pero actually, kahit anong usapan yung gagawin natin ngayon, hindi na po clearly detect nyo sa ngayon yung consumer na pag nag-complain sa inyo, dapat pupunta. Okay? Ang dami, sa fast food chains, there are a lot of violations. They have value meals, no? Or balik ka ng menu, kalahati yung bibigay, picture malaki. So parang, may short chains about it. Now, in the past, ang naging successful kami dun sa generics, where we push for the universal affordable generic. Kaya ngayon, lahat ng presyo ng gamot, almost even plan, are half of the price. Nangyari yan last administration, but the law was in 1986 pa. So, yun yung mga products namin na pinupush. Meron na akong gustong talibin sa FDA. Hanggang ngayon, matagal na namin kinakontrol yun. Ito, Clear Oil Herbal, na in-advertise pa sa government station. Ano ba ang ginagawa ng gobyerno natin para ma-address ito? Kasi we formalized our complaint in 2002 about it. And up to now, nandun pa rin yun. Sabihin mo, cancer, yung SIV, cervical, lahat, halos nandun. So, isa sa concern namin yung Clear Oil. Marami silang naluloko ito. Kasi wala kami problema sa basic commodities eh. Going back to DPI, yung mga noodles, yung mga staple foods natin na pinapakain na ordinaryo yung tao, yung biscuit, ito yung baon sa gabi, natira, wala ang problema. Pero yung isang hindi nakikita ng gobyerno dapat tunan ng pansin, yung bakit mataas ang bigas. Kasi punta na ang DPI, kung NDA, product model, kung naman-monitor nila kasi ang complaint po ng farmers is hindi na-check yung presyo ng input ng fertilizer. Hindi bilit-bedlan kami ng bigas nila ng 8 pesos, darating sa atin. Darating sa atin dito sa Manila 40-42. Dahil po sa taas ng presyo ng fertilizers and feeds. Now, I just like to ask with your indulgence, Yusek, bit din na diba, kung meron din po nagmumonitor ng ganun. Kasi kaya mataas ang bread, mataas ang rice, okay, because of that, so sa amin, paano nakikiri yung detect na yun? And then, education on gasoline. Bakit mas mura yung sinasabi nilang fly-by-night? Eh, dapat walang ganun. Yung nagkagasolina na pupunta sa Senado, 500 pesos in 2 to 3 days, gusto nilang magkarga para makamura sa mga kumpanya yun, pupunta na sila sa Shell, pupunta sa Caltex, kasi talagang sigurado ang kalidad. Okay. Sige, Yusek. Lahat ito ordinary na experience na mga tao. So, talagang ito dapat educating sila. Bakit hindi magkakarga doon? Ibang meron ng 2 piso, malaking bagay yun. Kaya po marami ang concern nila.
mag-i-internet na po sila. After 30 minutes, 1 hour at saka makapag-research sila. Tatabarin ako, mag-game na lang, aabutin hanggang gabi. Bakit ako? Sabihin mo sa akin ito, ipit-ipit lang naman ito yun. Ang bagal-bagal. Ito sa internet na pinipuntang gamit. Lahat yung kami, nagbabarkada na. Kasi pinuriyan ko sila na magsabi ng totoo. Yan yung po yung huwag kayong magsusinungaling at maaari pinaglaban ko sa EDSA People Power. Pinalitan ko si Pam as chairman committee on youth sa EDSA People Power. Pinaglalaban namin. Kaya siguro dapat ang mga Pilipino magising. And in the last meeting sa internet, we joined our vice chairman, tinatanong pa kung is it a basic human right? It is a basic human right. Pero yung mga ordinaryong tao nakakainan ng na ano ba, maglulog ng 50 pesos, unlimited. Tapos wala pang 4-6 hours, kinainin sila. Kapag sila sa DTI. And then what DTI will do is to entertain their concerns. And some go to NTC. So they go to NTC, my good friend, tumihinit ko ba? Kasi hindi na po doon. Kaya siguro, kahit anong gawin natin, kailangan i-protect mo yung complaint ng ordinary consumer. Hindi na po pupunta yun sa magkaasaw ng panahon dahil sa transportation. Kung pwede po sagutin. Ilan po sa akin ang
Alright, so Tito Rick, thank you, no? And we'll expect your position paper also, no, on all of these points. Steve wanted to say something.
Mr. Chair, I just want to suggest that Mr. Manero, para to save on a lot of man hours and a lot of resources, you mentioned internet, I know it's very slow. Go online! When you have complaints, if it's legitimate, it'll gain fuel. You know, magkakalat ako, ako din, nabiktima din ako dyan, di ba? O maliit na yung nabili ko. Pero kung hindi legitimate, if you don't have it to you, hindi mo ako, you will not, meron kalamat ko, gusto ko sirahin yan, sirahin ko, pero hindi magana, hindi kakalat ang gusto yan kapag tulang ang kalat. No? Pero kung talagang ito to, gamit to most of the people in this room. And that's a faster way in getting it resolved because, you know, matatawan yung negosyante o yung ano, because they have to correct themselves. Marwala silang negosyo.
So, Tito Rick, we can talk about that later on, no? Offline na lang tayo on that. Let's go to Attorney Hulalbal, no, from the Ad Standards Council. We have comments from the consumer.
Thank you, good afternoon, Your Honor. Thank you for inviting the Ad Standards Council. Just for the information of those who are not familiar with the Ad Standards Council, it's a private organization composed basically of the advertisers, the advertising agencies, and the media platforms. The objective of which is to for consumer protection through truth in advertising. It is a self-regulatory group, and we have adopted our own standards, rules and regulations and procedures. These are in manual form, manualized rather, and have adopted a lot of the provisions of the Consumer Act, and in fact have enhanced a lot of them. We also work closely with government agencies, the DTI, NTC, FDA, NTRCB, insofar as self-regulation on content. We do not engage on trade relations among our members. We ensure that government rules, regulations, and laws are complied with insofar as advertising content is concerned. By way of example, if a product is covered under the FDA, we require a certificate of product registration before it's registered, so we can see the limitations, etc. We have a enforcement mechanism, and this is also done in conjunction with government agencies. For example, if we receive a cease and desist order, we disseminate this to our, for example, there's a cease and desist order on a particular advertising material. We ensure that our media platform members do not accept and remove from or do not further use the advertising materials. We will submit specific comments as it relates to our functions. For example, Your Honor, there's a provision on testimonies, for example. And we note the comment of Mr. Samaniego that indeed testimonies are being used to circumvent prohibited claims, particularly on food supplements. We have worked with FDA on this. In fact, lately we have strongly enforced already the conversion of the no therapeutic claim into Tagalog. Ang produkto nito ay hindi gamot at hindi nakakagamot ng anong uring sakit. There are some airline situations that we lately work with, for example in NTRCB. There are advertising material embedded in supposedly content. Through NTRCB we have a working relationship that if a content or something that is presented as content is actually an advertising material, they will still require clearance from the Ad Standards Council. Because we practically represent about 80 to 90% of advertisers, about 95% of broadcast, which has the largest materials in terms of advertising materials.
Attorney, well, we really welcome your comments here and suggestions, no? But off the top of my head, because in the previous hearing on the slow internet, the main circular that NTC came out with, it's really an advertisement, really affects advertisements, no? Basically, ang nilabas ko nila last Saturday is that the telcos, when advertising the internet, need to put the average speed and not the up to speed. Now, up to speed, technically, is correct because at some point in the day, probably 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. and for about 1 hour, 2 hours, you can reach that speed. So up to it, diba? But it's very far, no, from what's actually experienced by the consumers. Now that circular is the first time that government has put its foot down and said you have to advertise the speed that's closer to the experience of your consumers. And now, if the speed published by NTC is not near the average speed, it can become a cause for a consumer complaint in DTI. This is the first time na nangyayari yan. But if you notice, we've been advertising internet for the past 10 years probably. No? It's only after 10 years that we will be advertising average speed over up to speed. So for me, you're a self-regulated council, diba? How will it happen that, I'm sure you've heard that, we talked about this last time, napakalayo ng experience ng ating mga consumers and subscribers, diba, from what is being advertised. So, I'm just wondering, is it time to update the standards of the Ad Standards Council? No? Because paano kung nakalampas yun, diba?
Yes, Your Honor. In fact, we have constant updating, just as the matter at hand. If the NTC, as it did come out with a circular on guidelines on how to advertise internet speed, we will automatically adopt that.
I see. So you're waiting for the regulator to
yes, Your Honor, because really there's some form of internal conflict of interest, if that's a proper term, because some of our members are telcos.
Of course.
Actually, all of the telcos are members of, and there's nothing that prohibited, for example, advertising up to.
Yes.
They advertise up to, but since there is specific regulation now issued by NTC requiring average speed, then we ensure that now the advertising materials of the telcos will state the average speed.
Okay, thank you for that, Attorney. But again, just to say that, kasi the best is, if you're I'm a proponent of self-regulated councils. In fact, I would prefer that most industry councils are self-regulated. But, syempre, if you're a self-regulated council, your standards need to be higher than the standards of government proposes, diba? To be truly worthy of that self-regulatory aspect, kumbaga, you're expected to have even higher standards than what's in the law, diba? So, anyway, I'm sure that's something that we can discuss in your board, no? Is the ad board the same as
reform related to trade practices. And the Ad Standards Council focused on advertising content. So now it's just the advertising content that's functioning.
Okay, there's a Twitter question here. Bakit daw pinapayagang fine print sa mga TV ads? Because it can hardly be read anyway.
There are certain materials, Your Honor, that we require certain font size, particularly in mandated taglines or claims. For example, we require a higher font. Ang produkto nito hindi gamot. It's shown in all.
Malaki mo yun, di ba?
In all. The other, for example,
Breast milk is best for babies. It's another one, di ba?
But if these are, for example, asterisk things about the product, there's a minimum font size, and sometimes it's affected by the size of the screen. It may be actually our font size standard should be readable, but it also depends on the screen and the resolution. Yes, we cannot assume that all screens are of the same size and of the same resolution.
Okay, well, that is the question computer, but that might be something we can also look at in the amendment na kapag fine print, hindi naman ito sobrang fine na hindi mo na siya mabasa rin. But I'm sure we can discuss it further. Wanna say something?
Just want to update you, Mr. Chairman, that as I promised in the last meeting on the MC of NTC, I was advised by Director Anselmo that tomorrow we have a meeting with NTC, really craft and understand the MC, how we will handle consumer complaints arising of misleading advertisement. And at Standards Council, we have an existing MOU or MOA? It's an MOU. So I just requested Director Anselmo to invite you tomorrow, so you can be part of trying to understand how to implement the MC of NTC in relation to advertising.
We will be there. Thank you, Attorney. Mr. Chair, do you have any comments? And then Ms. Ching, Attorney Ching, do you have any comments before we adjourn?
Thank you, Your Honor. Initially, these are some observations, but we will be submitting our comments and inputs formally to the committee and eventually during the TWG. Just an observation, somehow the reckoning of the amendments, the proposed amendments, and even to the existing Consumer Act, somehow it's geared towards the consumer as a user of product or good, rather equally than as a user of a service. Kasi even the composition of the NCAC, it's on the premise that this are on products, so not even the provision on penalties where it's benchmarked on the value of the product concerned. But what if the nature of the complaint is with regards to services attributable to, for example, a practice of profession or a particular service to be rendered, such as event management, publishing, logistics, travel and tourism. I understand there was already a discussion about the succeeding subsequent bills and laws passed. So I just, as a consumer, would want how these existing policies and laws is reconciled with the, for example, Passenger Bill of Rights, Lemon Law, how all these realities play with the overall consumer rights and welfare as may be envisioned by the Consumer Act, and how the recent realities such as investment schemes, financial and e-crimes, the fines and penalties covered on the Consumer Act and in other laws. And hearing from Mr. Samaniego on another point, there may be one thing we can look as into the setting up of the consumer policy and law, which can be more proactive, because the discussion so far is based on a complaint, a feedback. So how can we make it more responsive and proactive? So similar to like a self-regulating consumer policy and law. So these are
In fact, since that was raised already, magandang yung powers and functions of the Consumer Advisory Council, baka they can be deputized, so they have the power to file complaints on behalf of consumers. It's something we can look at also. Kasi, if we're waiting for a complaint all the time, and we know for a fact that petitioners won't have the time anyway to push through with a complaint because of the amount of the product or service that they spend. So maybe that consumer council can actually take back actions. Anyway, it can be backed up by data. If there are multiple complaints on a particular issue, they can do that. I mean, that's something we can explore in the PWG. So, Attorney Ching, do you have anything to add? Down to ba?
For today, Your Honor, we will just reserve our right to file comment on our position paper, considering that we have to discuss with the management what provisions of the Consumer Act would have an effect on us.
Alright, so thank you. So let me just have some final, Mr. Chair, if I do, sige po. Sige po, go. Alam mo, mahaba ito sa consumer. And I prefer to speak in Tagalog. Yung pilot project ng internet, napakaganda talaga nun. Pero kailangan maintindihan at unawaan. Siguro, the next meeting, attend rin yung ibang mga senador. Hindi dahil sa makikiright sila dahil politika to. Concern to ng lahat, pati ako, pati staff mo, everything, pati kami naman. Okay. Gusto ko lang rin malaman kung meron pa tayo sa issue because the magnitude of the problem of DTI, yung Consumer Protection Welfare Department. Now, I'm sure meron kayo, Yusek, di ba? Still there is possibility na para ma-push yun naman yung trabaho nyo, magkaroon o mag-create ng Consumer Welfare Protection Commission. Para lahat ng complaints nandun, and then ipapasa nila doon at getting this done, yung resulta ibibigay nila sa mga average consumer. And I'm sure lahat nito gusto magsalita ng mga experience sila. This is the daily experiences, especially in the PWP. Actually, there's a consumer the council. Ano yung formal name na council natin? National Consumer Affairs Council. So,
It's not authorized to handle complaints.
no, exactly. Which what I'm saying is that we can add, no? Kasi we're amending na rin the composition. We might be able to, or we might be willing to add in the functions of the advisory council to act, no? On behalf of the council, to act on these complaints also. Kasi I think everyone more or less recognizes that that's a missing piece, no? Because ako naman, in fairness naman to Yusek Dimagi pa, yung kanilang hotline tsaka yung pag-resolve to mediation, I think it's quite efficient, no? That's actually done. But there is that concern na who will speak up for those who have complaints but cannot push through them. And maybe that's something that on a proactive basis that DTI could also do. But we'll discuss that in the PWG. So before we finish, no, let me just quickly raise the Exact Change Act, no, because this is also regarding the Exact Change Act. We'll also call for PWG and the Exact Change Act. So we'll expect some of you to be there. But this is a pet bill of my counterpart in Congress, which is why we also want to push this. So the only change that we want to do with the Exact Change Act, and we can just talk later on or in the PWG if you have concerns with it, is that rather than exact change, is that you're not short-changing anyone. Because I think it will be unfair to the retailers if hanggang 12 centavos or 3 centavos, kailangan mo talagang ibigay. As long as hindi kulang, diba? So that's why rather than saying Exact Change Act, we would like to say Anti-Short-Changing Act, which is that you cannot short-change a consumer, no? So kung ang change niya ay 33 centavos, pwede ka namang 43 and above, diba? Okay lang yun. Kasi kung gagawin natin kailangan exact change, I think maybe the PRA or PASA will have some issues with that. No? They'll have to carry the 1 centavo, which I don't even think is in circulation anymore. No? So, that's the only, it's a very short law. Will also